So what kind of interest rate might an institutional lender get on the Firefish marketplace? And equally, if I was to turn up with my Bitcoin, what might I have to pay to get a loan on my Bitcoin?
So this is also, I would say, one of the rather counterintuitive elements of the platform when it comes to setting up the interest rates. Centralized lenders, they would, obviously quote a rate like, hey, that's 15%, take it or leave it. Do you wanna take a loan or not? It's your call. Some other platforms would be driven by the lenders. So the lenders would be offering, various rates for various tenors, for example, various currencies. Whereas on our platform, we flipped it the other way around. We wanted the borrowers to set the interest rates they're willing to accept, right? So if you're the borrower,
Wow.
you come to the platform and say, hey, I want to borrow, let's say, 10,000 euros for 12 months or 6 months at 8% or at 10%, right? So the borrowers are actually submitting their requests into the platforms, and then investors, what we call those, basically lenders, what we call investors, can see the full marketplace, the full order book, basically, of the requests from the borrowers, and they
Cool.
can decide on the combination of the amount, of the tenor, and the interest rate they would accept, right? So it is driven by the borrowers. Obviously, when there's a sort of a bigger demand than supply of, let's say, fiat, then the borrowers would need to kind of increase their interest rates as they go. But as it's an open marketplace, there's always the price always settles, like the interest rate always settles where there's enough liquidity, enough supply of liquidity to cap those rates. Also, the second option for the borrowers is something what we call an instant loan. So we do have a couple of lenders that already committed their liquidity for the platform. So you as a borrower, you do not have to wait until some investor picks your request and then you have the deal ready.
Nice.
You can go to the platform and just click like, hey, yeah, I'm taking an instant loan. The liquidity is already committed. So once you process your Bitcoin, once you lock your Bitcoin, the funds are dispersed immediately, right? So the interest rate, when we talk about interest rate, so the instant loans obviously would be always a bit more expensive than the rest of the marketplace. So that's the kind of the premium that you pay for the convenience that you get the money on your account immediately. And at this point in time, I mean, the interest rates for USDC, for example, which might be relevant for you, for the instant loan is actually 11.5%. But if you want to go to the marketplace, the rates are lower. So you could get from, depending on the tenor. So for example, 3 months loan, the interest rates are much lower than for 18 months. Which is the maximum that we support for the time being. So for USDC, the range would be from like 6 to 10%, let's say. For euros, we've seen a tremendous demand. So the interest rates would be, again, something around 9 to 12, 13%. And these are obviously also very interesting rates for the lenders, like, getting a double digit on euros is basically impossible unless you kind of gamble or, buy some stocks or junk bonds or something like that. So that's
Cool.
where those rates are, and that's the process how they're set. Yeah.
And what I'm always looking for is environments in which you can see a 10x on the status quo, be that faster, cheaper, or stronger. And so, a traditional bank account, I know here in Australia, I might get 5% on my Aussie dollars
Mm-hmm.
in one of the big four banks. In the UK, it's not even that. It's lower, I think, on your pounds, maybe like 3 or 4% at best. And it's like, well, you can get double, triple those numbers if you go and stick your fiat dollars in USDC via Firefish. How does this work as a business? So for you guys in the middle of all of this, I absolutely applaud the incentive or the instinct and intention to make your business as transparent as possible. But also, you need to be incentivized to actually go and build this thing. So how does it make money?
So, well, first and foremost, as we are still a startup, even though we've been running the company for like 3 years, so we do have investors, a couple of venture firms behind us, as well as recently we announced a partnership with Brains, basically first mining pool in the world, a Bitcoin mining pool. So we've been using, obviously, funds we've received through the funding rounds to obviously build a platform, to execute the go-to-market strategies and all that. But in terms of the platform itself, we do charge a processing fee basically for each loan, which is 150 basis points basically per deal, right? So obviously depending on the range or tenor that you actually go for, if you go for 12 months loan, then you're gonna pay 150 basis point on top of the interest rate that you've basically are gonna pay to the investor, right? So that's the primary source of income. As we speak, we're developing additional new products. They're still in the pipeline. We're gonna definitely update the whole market as soon as they're ready. But we might find also additional sources of income. But for the time being, the majority of the costs, I would say, are covered by the origination fee that we charge.
Okay, cool. And that to me means that basically the bigger the volume you guys can do as a platform, the better for this initial use case and business model. Yes, there'll probably be all sorts of other different things like securities lending, as you've described. It's a massive business, like people taking loans against their Apple stock. Like, how do you think old mate Muskie had the cash to go and buy Twitter? Well,
Exactly.
he's got a shitload of Tesla stock, and he's like, well, I'm going to take some cash from that stack, and I'm going to take some cash from somewhere else. And he's like, yeah, I can probably lock that in at, like, he's probably only paying not even 10% interest, I'm sure, on that stuff, right? And it's like, it's not a free hit, but for someone that backs themselves, the ability to leverage your existing wealth is really, really fascinating. And that's what you're helping to unlock here.